Welcome to our webinar. We're going to be talking about saved views, and I've asked Roderick, who is a good friend and an expert at ActionFlow. He's at Fab Choice. They do consulting in the industry, and he's going to talk a little bit about saved views, and he can explain a little bit, but the idea is obviously the grid view is a powerful feature, but we know that it can get a lot of information, and we have a way for you to save the most relevant pieces of information. So we're excited to have Roderick, and we're recording as always, and I'll post that after our webinar.
Thanks, Grace. So I may not be looking straight at you because I'm using two monitors here. So I'm going to be working off one monitor and the video's coming off of another one here. So, okay. So last week, or last session, last time we spoke, we spent quite a bit of time talking about the dashboard and the red flag reports. So I'm just going to kind of touch upon the various areas that you can get information from ActionFlow. This is obviously one place. The next area to go to obviously is your report module, and there's a variety of reports in here. So everything from job costing to labor to payments, etc. And of course you can then look at what we call totals by, and then you can pick any one of those three and then do some filtering after the fact. But if you'd like to do some custom views or custom searches that are not pre-configured, or set up views for each of your, for either personal views or views for others, you can use what we call the grid view. Now the grid view is kind of a little sleeping giant. There's lots of very powerful features in here. The first thing that you are looking at here is, what are you going to search for? So from the record type drop down here, you can look and search on your accounts, and these typically line up with the various modules. So if I was to go into my accounts module here, yes, I have a very basic search, but that just searches for the name of the account. It won't really get me into any details. But if I go to grid view and I search for account, and all of a sudden, first of all, the color changes to green. That's a visual indicator that you're into the accounts area. If you select one of the other areas like customer, it'll change a different color. So pretty soon you can get used to the shades that are there. And if you want to look for a status of an account, or you want to look for a particular address, or you'd like to look for a particular salesperson, and then from their name, go ahead and select it. You can go ahead and do what we call a basic search. To the left of where I select my record type, you'll see I have three little radio buttons: basic, include related data, and there's a warning here that it may include duplicates, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And you have a third one, which now allows us to include actions. So this is typically more in line with what you do on a job or something of that area in nature, where you're trying to find a particular set of records where the installation is either complete or not complete, or the invoice entry is complete or not complete. And we've got some examples. We'll show you that as we go through this. So I'm going to stick with my basic one here. And let's say, for instance, I went and looked for a particular salesperson, and I just searched for a signed role as sales rep equals Amanda. Now, I should have started this seminar by also indicating that I'm using a live database. I have gotten permission from Rock Tops, Utah to use this for demo. It's a little bit more, I think, informative to have a database that's got real data rather than playing with play data. So you can see here the preliminary search on accounts for sales rep equals Amanda allows me to quickly find 61 records in the system here. And I can look at those records. You can see on the left-hand side here, I can pick and choose the fields that I wish to show. So if I want to turn off QuickBooks ID, I can go ahead and do so. If I don't use regions, I can do so. If I don't use webs, I can turn that off. So you can pick and choose which fields you wish to display that are important to you. You can also move a column around. So if I wanted to, for instance, grab this column and move it over here, I can do that as well. And then if I want, then I can click on this Save As button, and I'm just going to save this as demo sales count. And then now what I can do is I can choose to either save this as a private view, or I can click this little button here, which allows anyone who has access to the grid view to also see that same one. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And you can see it saved up here. And if I click on the downward list here, you'll see it sorted alphabetically. So I've got this demo account Amanda. Now, if I go and change any parameter that's in here, let's say, for instance, I really don't want to show this, maybe I don't want to show this created date column. I go ahead and turn that off. And maybe I'm now starting to use the region, so I turn that on again. If I simply click save, it'll update that view that I have there and make that view now updated with those new columns. Now, if I wanted to then do a second view for another salesperson, maybe I'm going to pick Andrew. All I'm going to do at this particular point here is I'm just going to go ahead and I can retrieve again, which is basically going to put me back to square zero here. I've got my fields here, then I have to reselect again. I can click Save As and make a change to it if I want to. But if I go back to the original field that I had here, called demo equals account Amanda, give it a moment to wind up here. And I was to now change this, for instance, to Andrew. I can save as and change this to Andrew. Now I'm not going to see my results until maybe I come back into here and select it again and rebuild it. And now you can see that without me having to redo all my fields and my sort order and selections, etc., I have very behind the scenes, it's not obvious, it's kind of a little hidden feature, is I've changed the default search to reflect Andrew. I didn't click retrieve records. I didn't hit the save button. I hit save as and changed it to Andrew. So I'll do that one more time because it's a very powerful feature. I'm going to select Carly. Simply click Save As and change Andrew's name to Carly. And then click OK. Then I'm going to recommit the search by hitting this little recycle. And now you can see I have now retrieved all of Carly's accounts. And I can go ahead and save that as well and make changes there. So this will work on any one of these sections here. So let's look at customers. Customers would be basically this module right here, where you have all of your customer jobs. And again, you've got fields that will align themselves and match up to the data that's in that particular area. So you can do the same thing here. You can go ahead and look for assigned roles, find all the sale orders or all the jobs, for instance, for sales rep equals, and we'll focus on Amanda again. I'll do a retrieve records here. Now, what you'll find is there's 509. And in this particular case here, maybe you don't want to see them all. Maybe you just want to look at certain ones that were created within a time frame. So here's where you would go ahead and make some changes to the sub filters. So the primary filter is in this record type section here. My secondary filter might be, I want to look at all the records that are created in a date that is greater than or equal to, and I can go ahead and enter a date in here. I'm going to do January 1st. So now I'm going to just hit this filter button, and you can see that there's been a number of records here that have been created, 33 records since the beginning of this calendar year. So now if I wanted to save this out, I can give it a name. I can call it customers, dash Amanda as of, January 1st or 2021. And then as my criteria changes throughout the year, maybe in March, I'm going to change my filter here and I'm going to change this to be March 1st. So I want to know what was created as of March 1st. So as my period evolves and my time frame changes, I don't have to recommit the whole new filter again. I don't have to go up here and redo all this stuff. I simply am using a sub filter inside my primary filter to do that for me and get that information that I want, and then then I can hit save and update that record. So we have the same thing in inventory item, inventory PO. So I'm going to go through some of these. I've got some other examples that I've opened up already, and I've got sort of sitting here on the side. And this also reminds me to make sure I share with you that you can always have multiple sessions of action flow open at the same time simply by going back and logging in. So currently I've got 4 sessions open at the same time, so I don't have to take the time and let you kind of wait while I find these reports and make them come to life here. So here's an example of inventory, and you can see I just did a basic search, inventory item, and now I've employed 2 subfilters. My first filter was simply looking at a class. So I've said, okay, I want to find everything that is in my special order sinks and my stock sink. So I have 2 classes in this database. Then I want to look at just what's available. I'm not interested in sinks that are not available. So then I did a secondary filter and I said just available. So this gives me, in this case, 971 sinks that I have on hand in stock. And again, I can pick and choose my fields. Many of them turned off because a lot of them do not apply. So I'm going to go ahead and turn these off as well because they don't apply to this particular view. And all I have to do is hit save and away I go. And now I have this information sitting here as to my sinks. So again, I've saved that as inventory all sinks. Same thing here, I've got inventory all sinks tagged to jobs. So I want to look and see what sinks are associated to jobs. Now again, I could have worked off the main report and just done a sub-filter for a temporary view, but I thought it was powerful to have this as a save view so that anybody can come back to it at a later time. And now you can see why I've pre-saved some of the views to save you having to watch this little retrieve records going around here, but some of them take a little time. In this case here, we had 971 sinks in our sink inventory. Here it's looking at a number of multiple records, making some decisions as to what it's going to show here. So we'll give this a moment to spin up here. Once I have this in place here, I'll start spending a little time talking about these additional filters here on the left, where we talk about include related data and things of that nature. So I'll spend a few minutes with that on you as well. And I'll pull that up here. So it looks like this one is taking a little bit longer than I had hoped. There we go, finally. So we have 1,447 sinks that are applying to this particular filter. Again, all sinks that are tagged to jobs. So here you can see this filter here should be employed. In other words, I really don't need to look at sinks that are installed. I simply want to look at sinks that are available. So here's where I'm going to do a sub-filter and do a filter here, close this out. Now you can see I have 15 sinks that are tagged onto jobs. So here's my job numbers. Here's my area numbers. Now, once I've realized that this report isn't as clean as I had thought it could be, now that I've employed that secondary filter and changed the status to available, I'm simply going to click save, and that will then create this updated report, and it certainly won't take as long the next time I do this. Okay, I'm going to switch over to here. Okay, so here's a classic case of where I have used a second filter type, which is include related data. And this is what I want to point to right here, is may include duplicates. What that means is on an account, you might have multiple people assigned to that account. You might have a salesperson, you might have a project manager, and in each case then, you're going to see that same record twice. So in this case here, you can see I've actually got this record here multiple times because I have different variables on that one record. So what I might do is I might use my secondary filter and say, I'm just interested in looking at my sales reps, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now I've shortlisted my sales reps, and I have a filter. You can see it's a little darker shade of blue, and that's now focused on the fact that I'm looking at Amanda's records here. And I'd have to go through and take a look at this and find out exactly why is this one still showing up twice. And what you're going to find is one of these records over here to the right, here we go, phone numbers. So here you can see I've got 2 phone numbers for the same customer. So therefore, as it says up here, may include duplicates. And that's because there's something unique about that record. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to say, you know what, I'm only interested in phone number 1. So I'm going to come down here and select phone number 1. That's all I'm focused on right now. And now I'm going to filter that one more time. And now you can see on the left-hand side here, here's my behind the scenes, every account has a number, numeric value. So you can see I only have now 1 record of each of those accounts. And my 3 filters are sales rep is the role, Amanda is the user, and finally over on the right, I'm only interested in looking at phone number 1. So when you use the secondary type of filter or report style, if you want, GridView style, be aware that you probably will have to do some sub-filtering in order to get this to be a nice clean list for you. I'm just going to go ahead and save that on Amanda's. And probably after this session, I'm going to revisit some of the other ones that are here and clean those up as well. Remember that in this case here, a lot of these reports and views were built shortly after going live. Now we've got a year's worth of data here. We probably should revisit some of these views and start cleaning them up. One more to show you here, and again, I'm going to reposition my views here. And I'm going to now share this screen right here, which should be my grid view for jobs.
Yep, we see it.
Okay, very good. So now you can see we're on the 3rd component here. So this is the one where you have to have a pretty decent understanding of how the actions are set up, which action triggers possibly another action, and what are the variables we need to look at here. So this happens to be a view called invoice, exported but not paid. So I've exported my invoices to QuickBooks, but at the moment I have not received full payment on these invoices. And again, how we do that is we just do the basic filter, but we add some variables now. So here I'm saying the action that I'm focused on is invoice export. Notice that if you needed to add a multiple action, you would simply put a comma after this, no space, just a straight comma, followed by the second action. So you will need to know the name of the actions and make sure you have them spelled correctly. And in this case here, when you use these actions, you're always required to have either one of these 4 date fields or multiple dates entered in here. So right now, in order for this filter to work, if I was to remove the date and hit retrieve records, it would come back and say, I'm sorry, you need to have a date. So I'm interested in looking at invoice export that has been completed since the 1st of this year. And then I'm going to click retrieve records and I'm going to get a set of records. And then I need to do a subfilter. So if you scroll to the right here, I'm looking at then adding a subfilter on this one here to determine what is my payment status. So you can also look at this and you can then here, you can see the status here on the left-hand side says invoiced. Okay, so if I simply look at a status called invoiced, then I'm going to be looking at all those ones here that have not been paid. As they're paid, then automatically the system will change the status to paid. When I run this report the next time, that particular transaction 3050 would not appear. So as you get more away from the basic report style and you start navigating into these ones down here, having a little bit of an understanding of the database structure is a win-win, plus for you. And also you might need to reach out to someone at ActionFlow, or if you're one of my clients, reach out to myself and we'll get you jump started. But they're not that difficult once you get your mind into it. And again, we changed the date here to reflect the 1st of the year. But if I went back, for instance, into last year, and I simply changed that to a 0 value, like so, and again, just hit save as, or save, I'm sorry. If I was to recycle this, let's see if I have any from last year as of this date. So invoice export was completed as of 2020-0101, and let's see if we have any new records that show up in this list that require attention in order to collect final payment. So again, some of these reports take a long time to wind up, but there's a lot of data that it's looking for, a lot of data that it's trying to pull forward, so be patient. I'll give this one a minute here. In the meantime, the last area I'm going to cover while this is doing this is how to get to GridView quickly when you're in various areas of the program and you need a little bit more search parameters than what the default area is providing. So here we go. So now we have 80 records. So actually I'm going to leave this report as it is so that we don't miss anything. Again, if it has a status of paid, then it's not going to show up here because I'm only focused on these two statuses. So truth be known, I did this on purpose knowing that there was going to be more records back there, but I wanted to show you, again, reiterating how to make a change in the main search area, and then go ahead and save that, and then retrieve it again, and it'll refresh with the new data. So right now I've got 80 records in the system that require some attention in order to get paid. Okay, I'm going to cover my last section here. Let's say I'm in the customer module, and I'm not finding what I need just by doing a basic search here. If you'll notice on the left-hand side, there's a little magnifier icon, which will take you straight to GridView. Now, if you notice on the left-hand side, you'll see a green bar. That is the color of this customer module. If I click on the magnifier, I will have a matching color at the top of my GridView, and I've gone instantly into customers. Same thing if I'm in my purchase order module. If I find that I can't find what I'm looking for, if I click on the little filter, boom, it takes me right to the inventory module. If I'm in the vendor area and I can't find what I like, if I click on the little magnifier, it will instantly open the matching area to find here. The last topic in this GridView before we open the floor for questions here is how do I export this data? Once I have this data where I like, so I'm going to go ahead and select my demo one down here. See if it's still there. Oh, it won't be because this was created before I created. Let's just go here to this one here. So there we go. Now let's say, for instance, I needed to export this. What you would do is you go to the little tasks button up here, and if you're looking for tasks, basically the entire database has been updated to be the 3 chevrons, so the 3 little arrows pointing right. But here we have an older button that has not been updated yet. If you click on tasks, you can now export this to Excel. Okay, so be very careful that you don't select the second one or one of these ones because you'll get yourself into trouble for sure if you pick this one, if you're not comfortable with how the accounting side of your system works. So be careful and only select export to Excel. It'll go onto your local computer and then you can bring it into Excel and do some further pivots and views and analysis of that data later on there. So, okay, Grace, I'm going to open up for discussion if there's any questions or things that people would like to ask.
Yeah, thanks, Roderick. If anyone has questions, now's your moment.
Just be reminded that this was recorded, and Grace will let you know when it's available for reviewing, and maybe you can share it with your friends or people in your company that couldn't attend. But if you have any questions, then you can always fire it to one of us and we'll be happy to help you.
I guess, Roderick, I am obviously it's impressive what you've done with it. And so how long did it take you, or how did you come up with the different views that you wanted to show over time? Yeah, because you have a really strong library of saved views, but what did that process look like when you got started?
Well, is this the view? Is this the, I'm trying to figure out which view we're still live here.
I see the grid, the accounts Amanda. So I see the Alan Jenkins is.
Okay, let me get to it quickly. I've got multiple windows open here. Sorry about that.
Oh, no
This
problem.
one here? Count,
Yep.
do you see my cursor? Okay,
Yep.
very good. All right, so when we started, this was an empty list. Okay, there's nothing there. So what I focused on in the first week or two was giving each of the salespeople some sort of confidence that, hey, are my accounts set up correctly? So this was a fairly straightforward, and all these are basic views from the standpoint of being able to, or again, sorry, this was included related data. So it took me a little while to get my head wrapped around that. Then I went to what we call customer jobs, basic and detail, which allows us to see customer jobs detail, for instance, all my accepted jobs. I wanted to know my accepted jobs. And then I did the same thing for each of the salespeople. Then you just started with what people wanted. And some of them are public. Most of them are public. Some of them are private. And started working with the, whoever's locally, the administrator, and helping them build them out. Obviously, inventory was a big deal. And I do have some customers who have consignment inventory, so we're able to build inventory, consignment, and follow that through. You can see here we have a number of ones related to invoicing. So here you can see, hey, what has yet to be invoiced? What's on my schedule? Now, having said that, you could go to your do now list and go do that as well, but it's manual. That's a lot of work, at least it's for me. I do like my do now list, but I don't like to be hunting and pecking and looking at other people's do now list when I can simply run a grid view and see exactly what's hanging out there to be invoiced. Same thing here. We did some work with some syncs. We did some work with PO invoice entry. This has to do with the inventory module, and I'm ready to receive invoices from my suppliers and do those as well. And then actually, let's just speak a little bit about custom fields, because every time you add a custom field to a module, they are then going to become available in your grid view for reporting. So in this database, we added some custom fields to keep track of our remakes and redos and things of that nature. So we built a report here that is going to let us look at our redos and remakes. And again, when we put this initially together, we had probably a dozen records or so. So when I see a retrieve records like this taking a long time, I might want to revisit this and see what's going on here. But in this case here, I only have one record right now that needs a little attention. So here's my custom field. So on the left-hand side, you can see at the bottom here, I've got 3 custom fields: remake, redo, what is the code, and what's the note. And as I add these custom fields, you can already anticipate them coming into the grid view, just like they would be on a job itself. So in this case here, if I pick the job and I went to that particular job, you'll see in my job details here that I've got these custom fields. So anything that is added by you to, whether it's an inventory section, so if I have any custom fields that I might have added in here, or I go to my vendor record and I look and see if there's any custom fields in here, those will all appear in the grid view, allowing it then to be searchable, filterable, sub-filter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So long answer to a short question, but that's kind of how I got to where I am today. Each database, I have multiple databases, as you know. Each one of them is now configured differently, and having a lot of fun with grid views. They bring a lot of information to the users without them having to look here and look there, and some of them are a little complicated, and that's when I reach out to Grace, and she jumps in and helps me, and then we both learn from there and go on to the next level. So it takes a little while, but it's very rewarding.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, we think it can be a really powerful tool, but we know it take baby steps with it and get comfortable with the grid view, and soon you'll have a library like Roderick's. All right, great. Well, if there are no other questions, we will wrap it up, and I will post this recording today or latest tomorrow. So thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Grace.
Thanks, Roderick.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.